Welcome to this planning committee. Happy and healthy new year to you all. My name's Councillor Peter Bedford. I'm chairman of this committee and David Scoot is my vice chairman. Before we move to the agenda, I'd like to invite our officers supporting this meeting to introduce themselves.
Lisa Davis, legal advisor to the committee.
Nick Atkinson, development manager.
Lewis Humphreys, principal planning officer.
Thank you. And now moving on to the housekeeping rules, please be advised this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, recorded and will be transcribed for official records. By remaining in the room, you consent to being included in recording and transcript. When addressing this meeting, ensure you do so through the microphone system at all times. You do not need to adjust the microphone, simply raise your hand as normal and wait to be called. Then press the central button to activate your microphones before speaking clearly, and when finished, press the button again to turn it off. Mobile phones should be turned off and in the silent mode. As with no members of the public, I don't need to do the next little bit. Finally, please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Any disturbance will result in the meeting being adjourned. Anyone who is deemed to breach these requirements will be warned and asked to refrain. Behaviour persists, they will be required to leave the meeting. Although no members of the public have registered to speak today, since the last meeting of the planning committee, there has been a change to the public speaking policy. On the 1st of December, and in consultation with the portfolio holder, a change was moved to removing the questioning of public speakers by the members of the committee. This does not affect the right of the public to participate in our proceedings. They will continue to have the right to register to speak and then address the committee, but it will no longer be possible for members to ask questions of the public. And we now move on to receive apologies for absence and notification of any substitutes.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor Claire Rylett today.
Before we move to individual declarations of interest in respect of any item on this agenda, I'll ask Lisa to give the standing declarations.
Thank you, Chairman. For public information, I will confirm that the standing declarations of interest were recorded within the minutes of this meeting for all members of this committee, who are also members of the South East Lincolnshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee and representatives of the internal drainage boards.
Does any member of the committee have any further declarations of interest to make in respect of any item on this agenda, please? 3 then, to sign the minutes of the last meeting held on the 7th of October 25. Do I have the committee's agreement to sign these, please? Done. To receive any written questions from members of the public?
There are none, Chairman.
That concludes the preliminary items. We'll now move to part 2 of the agenda and address the planning applications for determination. The first one is B250312 Crown House, Lincoln Lane, Boston, which is on page 5 of the agenda, and the Principal Planning Officer, Lewis Humphreys, will now present his report.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an application on the Rosegar Square regeneration. It's an application for listed building consent. The proposal is to move the 5 Lamps monument from its current location on a piece of grassland just north of Lickupon Street and south of John Adams Way into the Rosegar Square regeneration scheme that's currently ongoing. You can see the current location here. This is the site plan as it was before works commenced. So you've got the B&M building and Crown House when it moves. Sorry, presentation's moved on my end. Just bear with me. Let me just stop sharing. I'll start again.
Yeah, sorry for the delay for anybody that's watching online. We have some internal IT issues. Thank you very much. I think we can now resume again.
Try that again. As I was saying, this is the site plan as it was before regeneration started. So you've got the B&M building and Crown House. They're just outside the red line. Those have now been demolished. The site has been substantially cleared and work is ongoing. The proposed siting of the 5 lamps is this red box here. So it's just north of what will be the proposed NHS building when it catches up. Yeah. Apologies, members. As you can see, this is the proposed location. Relative to the B&M building that you can see at the bottom, it is this this here. That you can see is the plinth. As I know, the plans for this have not been before you. This is just within the context of the NHS building that's been approved. You've got an entranceway here. There'll be a small area of landscaping, and then the lamp will be just outside of that. You've got 2 small plinths, so it'll be 2 steps up. Plinth details are conditioned to be finally agreed. So there will be, as I say, those 2 different granite steps up. Your existing and proposed elevations. So at the minute, the lamp is in a particularly poor state of repair. There's some damage to paintwork, and it's missing historic pilot lamps. This will reinstate that. There's a proposal to clean and carry out any repairs that are needed to the lamp as part of that. There is a slight alteration to the condition that is included within the recommendation for that, just to alter the phasing as requested by our conservation officer. So I just asked for delegation to tweak the wording of those conditions as appropriate. Members might be aware that this lamp was previously cited in the marketplace. There's a history of stands and lamps there. There was a gas lamp previously. This is the electric replacement that was installed in the 1920s and was subsequently removed to its current location in the 70s. There is a lamp stand in the marketplace at the minute that is a replica of the previous gas lamp one. That was installed in 2012, I think, as part of the pedestrianisation. So just for reference, this is the lamp in its current position. As you can see, you've got John Adams Way to the north there, and the buildings on Liquor Pond Street to the south. You've got existing landscaping in and around there, so it's not, in my view, especially visible in the wider context, but obviously does currently enjoy a reasonably prominent positioning within its current location. The proposal is to put it so with this red beach over here, just for keep an eye on that. This is the site plan as it was. Sorry, this is some context from the stump. So you've got 4 trees that go along here that are referenced in the site plan. You've got the red beech there, and it will sit just next to that. That red beech is proposed to be removed as part of proposals that you'll see later today. So it will sit in that approximate location. I appreciate it's a little bit difficult as it's a building site for me to provide kind of accurate photos of where it will go, but that will be its intended location. So it will be quite visible coming off the footbridge as you come down out of town, and equally using the new landscape, using the new footways as you're coming into town. So it will be a prominent location. It is not obviously its original location. The officer view is that the listed building does not attract much, if any, significance from its current location. It's not in its original location at the minute. This proposal will bring it into a location where it is more readily viewed. There are proposals to include a little notice board with it that will explain some of the history of the lamp as well. So that should improve its significance, provide a little bit more in the way of context. And just wanted to draw your attention, as I have done earlier, to the comments from the Heritage Officer regarding tweaks to the conditions. We've also received a comment from Historic England since the report was written that requests additional information in terms of the impacts the setting of the new location will have on the significance of this. It is officers' view that that is not necessary information for us to determine the application at the minute. That we know that there's been a comprehensive assessment of the significance of the proposal as it is now. We're comfortable in terms of the impacts on the significance of other listed buildings in and around the area, and with the repairs that are proposed, the reinstatement of the pilot lights and the increased prominence and increased footfall that this will see would be a general enhancement to the significance arising from the setting, notwithstanding the fact that that's not been as fully assessed as Historic England might have liked. So the recommendation here is to approve, subject to some conditions. Those conditions deal with a lot of the fine detail in terms of move-in repairs, final paint colour, details for materials for the plinths. And just as a last slide, this is the approved NHS elevation, as you will see it coming off the footbridge, and the lamp will just sit here where this proposed tree is. The actual details of the NHS's landscaping scheme are subject to conditions associated with that NHS application. So one of the concerns that was highlighted initially was about how proposed landscaping could overshadow it. We can deal with that as part of the conditions on the NHS application when it comes to it. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. There are no registered speakers for this application. I'll now open it to the committee for any comments and recommendations, please. Councillor Izzard.
Yeah, just two clarification points really. It's a listed item, so we're not likely to put CCTV cameras on it at all. And two, is there any justification to keep it on 24 hours? Is that possible? I know that may not be under the planning regs, but for this committee.
There's no proposals included within this to add any CCTV to the lamp itself. Whether or not there is anything that comes forward as part of the wider scheme on either the NHS or the Crown House redevelopment, I think they would probably be more appropriate locations than on the lamp itself. There aren't any details within the application about how often it will be lit. I suspect that's an operational matter, but it is a Boston Borough asset.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, that 5 lamps, it has been in around Liquor Pond Place on the green space for a long time, and it has been deteriorating, has been ignored. 2 years ago, we created some volunteers, which is just from the local residents of Boston. If we could remove it from where it was to some other place, one of the suggestions was front of Savers. There is a plaque there, but there is something from the EU, which is written. So that was one of the suggestions. Then we had a volunteer person who would have painted for free. However, we couldn't move it, so it's stuck. But now I'm very pleased to see it to be removed and put in a place where people can enjoy it and see the history of it. And I think give it a new lease of life. And I think it will make sense to have it there because the place will be new and people might visit it. And therefore, I think I will support this, the application. And if I can move the application, if there is no other speakers, then I will be happy to move it.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think moving this lamps to that position there is going to be a great feature in front of that new development. I think it holds a lot of history and tradition, and I support the application along with my colleague, Councillor Danny. So I'm happy to propose that we take the application forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've only been in this neck of the woods for 8 years, and in the 8 years, I did not know about this particular monument, where it is, and its history. This planning application has allowed me to learn all about that. I have actually visited it, and I do feel that its movement to a prominent place like that is absolutely the right thing. I will be fully supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Middleton.
This is the electric lamp from the 1920s. But I think the proposals are to, as part of the repairs, to make sure that it is functional. You've got the addition of the pilot lights as well. So while I won't speak on operational matters because I don't know what the answer will be, I do think it will be capable of being lit. Yes, I think that they will be installing that as part of the regeneration scheme.
You proposed it, Councillor. Yeah, Danny, and Mr. Mayor seconded. We move to the vote then, please. The recommendation is to grant listed building consent subject to the recommended conditions set out in the report. All those in favour, please.
Are we happy with the amended conditions?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you. On to the second item of business then, which is B250386, Public Open Space, Rosegarth Street, Boston, which is on page 15 of the agenda. And again, the Principal Planning Officer, Lewis Humphreys, will now present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Second application on the Rosegarth Square regeneration. This one is a Section 73 to the planning application that was previously approved by members. Just to cover through some of the plans, I've just shown you some of these. So this is the site as it was before. In this case, the application is before you to look at a revised proposal for the artwork. So there was a proposed statue in this western corner, just in front of the Len Medlock Centre, and there are some further revisions to the landscaping scheme since it's been approved. So this is the current proposal. As you can see, there's the path here is slightly straighter. There's a slight revision here in front of the NHS buildings. We've got the we've got the 5 lamps monument in this corner, and that's kind of it in terms of physical changes to the previously approved scheme. They're very minimal. I don't think that they will have any impact upon the quality of the design of the scheme or upon the wider impact on the significance of any listed buildings, or upon the character of the area. The most notable change is to the artwork. This was the scheme as it was before members last time. It was granted with a condition to agree the final details. We've had the final details now, but our view is that they're too different from the version that was before members before to be done under the condition discharge process. So it's done. It's been done through this application process. This is the artwork as it is now proposed. As you can see, it's not a single piece of metal anymore. It's not got that M shape. It's just a single arch. In officers' view, it's still an enhancement to the area. Our recommendation is to support it. Again, just some photos for your reference. The site is currently a building site, so these predate that. You've got the Len Medlock Centre there. The artwork will go here just in front of it, and this bus station element will be removed as part of the scheme, this bus parking area. And then just these areas where the proposed landscaping changes are. You've seen these photos as part of the last application. And then again, just this view from the stump. You've got the Len Medlock Centre over here, so the artwork will go in this area here. And then you've got those changes to the proposed footways and landscaping just as you come off the bridge. It's a fairly modest changes. I don't think they particularly materially affect the considerations previously, and our recommendation is to grant permission subject to the conditions that are set out in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no registered speakers again on this application, so I'll now open it to committee members for their comments and thoughts, please. Councillor Woodley.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't say I'm really much in favour of this, really. Peculiar item. I think it'd be an object for ridicule, perhaps, I suspect. You might ask the question, well, why is the council spending money on something like that? I don't think it'll have my support. I prefer greenery to artwork and steelwork. I'm not impressed by it. And I suspect it'll become an object of, well, perhaps vandalism or whatever. So, I mean, I have great reservations about this type of thing. Public money really should be spent, I think, on fancy artwork. It should be spent on things that really matter to the public. So I'm going to reserve my opinion on that, but I won't be supporting this. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have on the map, if you put it to the map, is there can we see where the boys and the fishermen's memorial are going to be as well, please? Could you point those out for me?
Question. Their boys are, there's one here and there is one here. I am not sure off the top of my head whether the Fisherman's Monument is staying on site or whether it's moved elsewhere. I can find out for you. I'll just go and have a look and I'll come back to you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman. Lewis, you know, from the previous designs and things I saw, there was a wavy thing that was going across the top of a footpath, if I remember rightly. Is that what it was before? A metal wavy. And did it go along a footpath, or did it was up in the air, wasn't it? It wasn't on the floor.
So the artwork as it was is here. There was a proposed little footway drainage feature that would have gone underneath it. So that was the image that we had previously. You can see some of that walkway here. There in the proposals, there is still an element of that here as seating or as walkways. I don't think that the proposals relating to what happens underneath have changed as much as it's the artwork itself. Okay, and I like Councillor Woodliff. I'm just concerned about damage and vandalism, and you know, people sort of trying climbing up it or swinging onto it or whatever they're going to do. It's just a bit worrying, that's all. I mean, I quite like the idea of that feature. I'm just concerned about its long-lasting, you know, situation, because I'm sure there's going to be people doing all sorts of strange things to it. But anyway, I mean, I'm happy with the new design anyway. Thank you.
Danny.
Mr. Chairman, the first thing of my concerns is that will it cost us more money or less money? Are we saving money or are we going to pay more money? That's one thing. Secondly, if you look at it, I think it's a great thing because all of them looks like a haircut. We are dedicating something to our barber shops in Boston. After all, I think it's something. Yeah, we recognize that our town we have a lot of Turkish barbers, so it's working good. I mean, from vandalism, in my opinion, I think it's by the police station. So hopefully, hopefully nothing will happen. It is like a haircut, isn't it? It's few haircuts there, you know, one on the left, one on the side. Probably. Oh, thank you. I agree with you. So as I said, it just from point of view, my concern is the cost. Will it cost less or more money to do that? And yeah, if I can have some answer on that one. Thank you.
Nick, you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a couple of quick points back. I think in terms of whether or not you think this is wasted public money, the cost implications, I'd just say that sits outside of what's before you today. They're not directly planning matters. There are other council forums that you can raise these concerns legitimately with, whether that be full council or scrutiny, but that's not a planning consideration. So I would just say that any concerns you've got about finances, please don't take those into account today because they're not material matters. I think in regards to the other thing as well, I think it's just mindful to say that we have as a council already approved a structure here. So we're not really revisiting the principle of having a piece of public art. The question is, are you happy enough with the changes between what you approved previously that Lewis showed versus what's before you now? So I think just a few points to take into account. And again, I think vandalism, I think that got raised, if I'm not mistaken, when this was debated previously. It's not really a matter that is a planning consideration. You're quite right. I mean, any building in theory or structure can be vandalised, but that's not really before you, members. The question is we've approved a metal piece of public art. It will change. Are you content with those changes in addition to the other elements that Lewis described previously? If you don't like the changes, then you are well within your rights to say no to it, irrespective of the fact that as officers, I have no real I for fine art, but I'm not convinced that there's a significant difference between the sort of two in terms of what you would overall get, but that's the judgment sort of before you. So if you're content with the changes, any other concerns around that are not before you at the moment. So I think just a few points that's just important to note. And I shall pass back to Lewis. I think he's got an answer to a previous question.
Sorry. Yeah, just to quickly answer Councillor Sharp's question. Let me just go back to the originally approved artwork that we've got, originally approved landscaping scheme. I appreciate that the detail on this is not fantastic. But you had a boy here, you had a boy here, and then there is the fisherman's monument is retained within that. It's proposed to be here. So on the version of that site plan before you, I think it's here. So the proposals are to retain the buoys and are to retain the fisherman's monument on site. This will be in addition. The 5 lamps will be in addition to that. Yeah.
Sir Austin, you was next. I will come back.
There you go.
Right, whether you put it down to my age and my eyes or what, but I would like some indication of dimensions, you know, for the wave. And if we're meant to read what's on there, then I cannot read it. I'm sorry. Can anyone else read all that? Wait, well, how tall is that?
See little humans.
People, where are they?
It's the artwork is proposed to be about 8 meters high altogether. I think that's a similar height and scale to what was considered previously. And as with the site plans, the plans are included kind of for visual, but for you to see the overall intent, not necessarily for you to kind of pick off every individual bit that's included in there. But to answer your question, it's proposed to be about 8 meters high at its highest point.
Councillor Rizal, you was next.
Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask why the artwork is changing? What's wrong with the first one?
I couldn't tell you. We are determining the application that's been submitted to us. It's not us that have submitted the application. I think that it's changed through design revisions. We knew at the time that the previous one was not necessarily the final design, and that was kind of indicative. That was the purpose of the original condition. Obviously, it's changed more throughout that. But as for the actual rationale for why that has changed, I can't tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Lena. Yeah, Lena, you're next.
I would like to support this application. And Lewis, could you go back to your previous artwork, please? Yeah. Yeah, so on this one, from my side of view, this one looks like it's more easier to climb. And this one, which we would like to propose, you would like to propose, it looks safer for me, as you cannot climb from the other side, from both sides on it. So that's my main. Yeah, thank you.
Rizard.
Yeah, just 2 points. Do we know the colours? Is it going to be like rainbow colours with each of them being different coloured strands? Because that doesn't really give us a great impression as to what the proposed artwork's going to look like at the end. And the second point was, you said there was going to be a removal of tree under the listed one. Is there going to be some new trees planted as part of this proposal?
So it's a silver grey finish to the monument. There is a requirement as part of this application for them to demonstrate a 10% net gain in biodiversity. Because the proposals are changing, the previously agreed biodiversity net gain, which is primarily an assessment of the landscaping in this application, is not, it can't carry over. So they will have to resubmit that. They will have to provide enough landscaping to still meet that 10% net gain. The legislation is set up that we can't agree that during the planning application stage. It has to be a condition discharge. So I would anticipate that if this got approval, we'd have a revised biodiversity net gain proposal in there in fairly quickly. My understanding is that the landscaping that is shown in this version of the site plan does meet the 10% gain that's required. There is new planting in and around this, particularly around this area. Yes, you will lose that additional tree, but that's generally you should still come out at that 10% net gain.
Middleton.
Thank you, Chair. Just for information, the reason it's changed, I believe, is because the first one was over budget, the cost was too much. I think the first one was certainly out of stainless steel, and by the looks of the second one, there's a lot less material in it. So if it is still stainless, I suspect the price will have reduced because of less materials. Whether it's painted, I can't tell from what I've seen. But the funding for the whole scheme, and why we're going to finish up with a piece of art when we may perhaps be spending money on better things, is because it was approved subject to there being a piece of art in this scheme. So I think that perhaps answers a few queries.
Danny, you wish to come back?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Middleton, for the explanation. So now it costs less. The previous chairman of planning say so. Yes, I totally agree. It's much more safer to have the new modifications because nobody can claim them, and also the other ones because we usually have strong winds in certain months of the year in Boston. That will be more probably prominent to a disaster than something, so we cannot cope with that. But anyway, for that reason, because now we know the financial is less, probably I may support this application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Welbury was next, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. Just following on from Councillor Middleton, can you confirm what it is being built out of? What are the building materials? It doesn't say.
Can find out, yeah.
Woodley, he'll come back to you.
Well, I mean, I think it's a crazy design personally. I like the local people have had some say in the artwork that goes up in this area. If we're going to have any artwork, maybe the school children could have designed something which would be specific for this area. I don't really feel that this particular design is any better than the last one. I opposed the last one, spoke against it, it was ridiculous. I think this one's ridiculous also. I would like local public to have more say over an area which is a public area. It would be good if the local people of such schools, whatever, have been able to propose something which is on in this site, rather than having it shoved in somebody elsewhere in the country, come at some crackpot. Sorry, some crackpot design. It's my opinion anyway. I'm entitled to have an opinion, apparently. So I don't support this at all. I mean, I was going to ask a question actually also. Is there only going to be any seating in this area, or is it just going to be a walk-through area? Is that the? We could have some seating there, perhaps instead of this thing. We could call the seating artwork if you wanted. You know, some thrones, perhaps. I'm sorry, but I've contempt for this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just to go back to the first question, the material is still going to be stainless steel. and then the base, the kind of base in and around there is going to be granite. There is seating as part of the previously approved scheme. None of the bits that change as part of this application change the approved seating. There is seating and accessibility kind of in and around the monument itself, and there is some proposed as part of this. There's a play area here, and there's some seating proposed as part of this kind of entryway near where the old bus parking bay is.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, listen to all the discussions and the debate. I think the artwork is a feature. I think it's something different, and I think it's something that will stand out, be talked about, and I think it'll be something that will be iconic, like the boys we've got in the town. So therefore, I'm going to propose the recommendations as they stand, and I'd like to take this forward. I'd like to be the proposer. Thank you.
Councillor Danny. Thank you. Any other comments on this whatsoever? Because you're now your last chance. If not, it has been moved and seconded. The recommendation to approve the application subject to recommended conditions set out in the report. Can we have a vote now, please? Right, we move on to the third application today then, which is B250269, land north of Titten Lane East, Wibberton. On page 27 of the agenda, and again, Lewis will present the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a Section 73 to a planning application that has been that's already been granted for planning permission for 132 houses. Outline permission and reserve matters have already been granted and approved. This is a Section 73 to the reserve matters. It proposes some very minor changes to some of the approved house types, and there's a slightly we've got a new layout plan, but all this does is update the house types that are on there. There's no changes to the approved layout. As I say, the changes to the physical changes to this are very, very minor. Just to give you an example, these are two of the plots as they were previously approved, and this is these are the revisions. The plots are reversed, so the plot that's on the right on this side was on the left in the previous one, but effectively the only significant change is a loss of a chimney. There are minor tweaks to porches, windows, etc., but it's all just very, very minor amendments. The principal issue in this application is viability. The application's been called in by the ward member for committee to consider the viability matters. When outline planning permission was granted, it was granted subject to a Section 106 that include 20% affordable housing. So that was 26 properties in this case. Education contributions, and after indexation, that comes in at just over 600,000. Health contributions of approximately 100,000 with indexation, and then monitoring fees. The application was submitted with a viability appraisal that showed that the scheme couldn't support any contributions at all. We've had that independently assessed, and they do agree with those conclusions. One of the main reasons for that is because there is a significant amount of abnormal costs associated with this that come from the foundations. The abnormal costs that were included in the initial assessment have been substantially reduced by our independent assessor. It's gone from about 5 million to about 3 million. So the independent assessor has still come to the conclusion that this can't support proposal, can't support any contributions. Just by brief reference, as I know we've covered this in previous committees, but the residual land value is the expected revenue minus the total cost minus the developer profit. And the benchmark land value is a standardized figure, which is what we would expect, or what a landowner could reasonably expect to receive for it. Where the residual land value is less than the benchmark land value, then a scheme is not considered to be viable. In this case, you're looking at a benchmark land value of just under 1.6 million. The residual land value with no contributions comes in at just under 1.1 million. So even in the even with no contributions, we don't meet that benchmark land value. We have objections from LCC. We've got 3 individual objections relating to education, to the travel plan monitoring, and a kind of generalised objection that talks about the fact that as an allocated site, this scheme should deliver kind of policy compliant levels of contributions. There is no objections or no detailed assessment of the independent assessment. There's no disagreement with the conclusions that have been drawn or the approach or the methodology that has been taken. These objections are purely on the basis that that they consider that the scheme should be capable of delivering. However, the evidence is that it's not. It's policy 6, the local plan, does allow us to take into account viability in determining whether determining whether any requests for contributions are reasonable. In this case, given the viability position, our view is that it is not reasonable, and we would the recommendation here is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions that are listed within there, and a deed of variation. We have had some late comments from the developer in relation to this deed of variation proposal. In the officer report, there is discussion, and the recommendation is that the deed of variation would include a clawback clause. So that is effectively in a situation where when you get to a particular trigger point, we don't have a fixed point, but say 75 or 85% of occupation. They would do another viability appraisal, and in a situation where the scheme is more viable, so where it comes out above in this case, it would have to come out above the benchmark land value, where it's more viable than expected, then any additional profit is then split at an agreed rate. So it allows us to recoup some of that, some of those contributions if the scheme performs better than expected. There is no particular policy position that supports that. It's not set out that we will take that approach in our policy, and the developer has pushed back on the agreement on the agreement of that clause on that basis. They've provided an appeal that where in the absence of a policy position that wasn't that clause wasn't included in the final agreement. Officer's view, I've had a conversation with Nick, Lisa and I have had a conversation about this morning, and our view is that we still recommend that at this point we take that clause forwards. The developer may choose to challenge it, or they may choose not to sign the agreement on the basis that it's in there. If they don't sign the agreement, it would come back before members for you to make that decision. Again, on that basis, the other option would be effectively the clawback clause is one of the only remaining clauses within the section 106. travel plan and monitoring costs have already been paid, so they would come out. The open space management is in there, but if in the event that you agree that the clawback clause is not necessary, then we would be able to grant planning permission without a legal agreement. And I would suggest that we have an additional condition that covered open space management. So effectively, we could grant planning permission without needing to go through those legal discussions. As I say, where a Section 106 is less than 5 years old, we are under no obligations to enter into negotiations and discussions. We have done in this case, and the agreement is that the conclusion is that it doesn't support those. It doesn't support those contributions. Officer's view is that it's still worth at least going through those negotiations with the developer on whether or not an appropriate trigger could be agreed. I don't know whether they will sign it. The early indications are that perhaps they wouldn't, but at this stage we could perhaps seek delegation to determine that, or we can, if members choose, it could come back if they choose not to sign it. That's an option that's available to members as well. That's kind of it for this one. I don't have any site photos to show you. It's the site is cleared. Development has commenced. The planning permission is live, but no substantial works have taken place on site yet. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. There are no registered speakers for this application, so I'll now open up to the committee for debate. Mr. Mayor.
So, Lewis, just for my understanding of this, that when this application was granted, then these developers just said that they would do all those following contributions, and now they're actually backtracking and saying they can't do it. Is that correct?
So, outline planning permission, which is the time that the developer contributions were initially included, was that was granted in June 2022. Since that time, we've had the reserve matters application that was approved. That was approved a year later in 2023, and now they've looked to commence work. That's now when we now come back with the viability appraisal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Izzard.
Thanks for that. So who gets to see the independent assessment on the profit margins for this site? You say that you have negotiated the independent assessment. We have not been able to view that, have we? Or is it part of the public records?
I don't think all of the viability appraisal that was initially submitted is available online, but the independent assessment certainly is. That's part of the planning record. So that's publicly available.
Thank you for that. Obviously, my main concern is the removal of 26 of the what you call affordable homes. And unfortunately, research shows that this is not a one-off just for Boston. It seems like every big builder goes back to councils and removes their 106 commissions in that sense of the word. They come with these nice box of roses, and then they come back with an empty tin of roses. And it's the same across all planning, across the whole of England. It's not just us. And they get away with it almost every time as well. I still feel that there should be a requirement for social housing. Boston desperately needs some social housing, and I don't feel that I can commit to agreement on this application without some sort of guarantee from the builders that social housing will form part of this development.
Yeah, for me, Chair, I think the problem that we've got, Councillor, is essentially the viability process I understand entirely what you're saying, and it doesn't probably sit comfortably with many people who work in planning. But the reality is it's a fact of planning. It does exist. The local plan allows for it, and national legislation allows for it, as unpalatable as that might be. The independent assessor, we don't just accept any old information written on the back of a fag packet for this. It's a very, very detailed viability assessment that comes in, and the company that we use are actually a contracted independent company that we have as a council have a sort of contract with who go through the appraisals very robustly in a very detailed manner. Quite often they will come back to us if they disagree. I think Lewis sort of made reference to it sort of before they even did find some sort of disagreement on this one. The problem that we have is that unfortunately the response that we've got back is that if we were to kind of go back and say there should be some sort of social housing, the evidence that's being provided in the viability appraisal suggests that would make the scheme unviable. So it'd be a case of we would get nothing on the site. I suspect we'd also sort of find ourselves at an appeal, which would be slightly challenging to defend on the premise that we've had it independently assessed and verified, and our own independent assessor, which that's not paid, well, that's appointed by ourselves of a contract with, they have actually agreed with the findings of that. So I think we're in a position where it can be very difficult / impossible for us to get any social housing on the site as you are asking for.
Who actually pays for this independent assessment?
We organise the independent assessor that there's a council we have a contract with, but the actual bill for paying with it comes from, we invoice the developer, so it doesn't come out of the public purse.
So they pay for it?
Well, they do, but let's just be one clear, they don't go out and find the assessor. We tell all developers, this is the company you have to use. They have a contract with the council. It's referred to in the local plan. It's simply, we appoint. It's just the bill doesn't land on the public purse. It gets paid for by the developers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Section 106 contributions cover a lot of areas. They're pretty much vital in my mind. Surely, if they make the project unviable, then is it not a case of just going back to the drawing board and starting again, or scrapping the whole thing? But you can't just do away with them and leave other improvements to other fund sources.
I think in this case, a significant portion of, or a big reason why the scheme is coming out the way that it is because of the foundations that are required on this particular site. That's going to be the case in any scheme that comes forwards on this site. It is an allocated housing site. It does, we can't currently demonstrate a 5-year land supply. If this site doesn't get developed, then that obviously further impacts on those figures. That's a material consideration. It's something that I think you should be taking into account. I don't think in this case that going back to the drawing board and looking at an alternative scheme would get to a point where you were in a different position.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Is there a reason why there's been 3 years from the approval with that Section 106 money to now we're back here 3 years later?
I can't speak for the developers, but I would think that that's fairly typical in terms of planning permissions being granted. We've had the reserve matters a year later. They've come in, they've made a start on site, and so I think it's just now is the point that they were intending to commence development.
It's just a real shame, isn't it? Because the amount of things that are going to miss out now. I mean, I know this is about the school places and needing another school. That the quadrant there must have impacted on those schools so very much. For school places, having a river through the town makes life very difficult for parents to get to alternative schools, and so it is a worry for me that things are approved with Section 106 money, and then they come back later on, and it's gone. But listening to what you've said and how it's going to have to play out, I think then that clawback clause is very, very important to try for.
Councillor Woodley.
Thank you, Chairman. We don't think we have any option. We have to support this, unfortunately. I accept everything that my colleagues have said here. The clawback clause is probably our only, a way of protecting our the long-term interests, perhaps. But I can't see any way of opposing this. If we did object to this, it would go to an inspector, as I think the officer said, and we'd probably lose. And it'd be costs against us, I suspect, if we didn't down that pathway. So I don't think we have any option but to support this. Though I have very strong objections in my own mind about it. So I'm prepared to remove this if necessary, subject to a seconder. I think it's an appalling situation, but we have no way around this, really. As the officer said, that if we object to this, it'll go to an inspector, and the inspector will support it, and then we'll end up with costs against us. So I don't think we can do anything else except approve this change in the application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Middleton.
No, Councillor Welbury next.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Welbury next.
What?
Oh, sorry.
Am I not on now?
Oh, sorry. Is it me? Just a point of information. Was there a viability assessment undertaken 3 years ago when this application was first brought before us?
I can find out for you.
Yeah, just as a interest, because surely the way that things are, nearly every application of any size has a viability application now. And also, is there any monies towards the road network? Is that a separate issue? Have the developer put any money towards the road infrastructure on this development?
There are no contributions to the road network within the section 106. Bear with me while I just double check.
I mean, outside the 106, because sometimes it's outside the 106, isn't it?
If when an application's assessed, which in this case would be the time of the outline consent, if any financial contributions are made to highway improvements, that has to be identified at the time by the highway authority. So that would have to be captured in the section 106 agreement if the developer themselves is going to pay any money towards that. If the county council are doing their own sort of highway improvement works, do their network management, then that will be a sort of separate matter. But if it's not captured in the section 106, that just means at the outline stage, that means there's no money from the developer. And in this case, not aware of the full details, but obviously that section 106 didn't capture at the time, so one would assume there was no request made at the time.
It's just that I've been involved with the planning application where that was sat outside of it for various reasons, and I didn't know whether this was the same. So as far as you're aware, there's no money towards the road network.
Like I say,
by the developer.
Conditions control anything within the red line boundary. Section 106 agreement is either to either get contributions or to deal with stuff that's outside of the sort of red line boundary. So if there was, like I said before, if there was an ask from highways or a need to make the development through a contribution to highway improvements, which is, you're absolutely right, that does happen on a lot of applications, certainly bigger schemes, but that would have had to have been captured at the time of the outline approval. So that it's not part of the 106, I would assume, meant that there was no such request made by county at the time that application was determined.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Middleton.
Just quickly, firstly to Nick, what's likely to happen to this site if we were to say no?
I mean, based on the viability appraisal, if we said no and they were expected to implement the consent to date with the contributions, I would suspect that whilst they've made a commencement, I don't know the extent of the commencement works, in theory you would get no houses built on the site.
They would walk away.
The viability
that's his option. That's the developer's option.
Yeah, absolutely.
He can either carry on or he can walk away.
Absolutely. That's always that's always the problem with viability appraisals. I don't disagree with anything that anybody has said around this table in terms of, does this sit comfortably? No, it doesn't. Do I like this? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody who works in planning does. It is an unfortunate part of the planning process, which is accepted. But the reality is, I think the question before you, members, is as you said, Councillor Middleton, if you were to say no and the applicant was expected to implement the first consent, if they didn't appeal, then I expect you would get no houses whatsoever on that site. So the question is, do you want nothing in theory, or do you want some? And as Lewis has alluded to, we do have a housing shortfall, and that isn't purely just for social housing, that is also for market housing. So we do have yes, we've got a strong responsibility to deliver social housing, but we also have a responsibility to deliver market housing for our residents as well. So but yes, in theory, based upon the information before us, you're quite right, Councillor. It would, in theory, if not appealed, you would get nothing on the site and they would walk away from it.
Okay. Well, I have to say, I find this situation appalling. The fact that a developer takes no business risk. He's obviously not checked the ground to see whether he can build the foundations he needs to build. He's not done his due diligence when he bought that land. But who's going to pay? It's going to be the young family who want affordable housing. It's going to be the young children that want to get educated. There's not going to be any education aspect to this. And also the families that move into that area or come into Boston are going to be deprived of NHS facilities because these people are not taking their business risk. I find it appalling. Unfortunately, I agree with Councillor Woodliff that we're in a very difficult situation. I don't know what's open to us. I don't know if, and it does go on all around the country. I can't believe that some council somewhere hasn't tried to fight this at some stage, but perhaps or we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? We'd all be trying to fight it. So I suspect there's been no avenue there, and we're going to be forced into passing this much against our own feelings.
Just to come back on Councillor Welbury's comments, there was no viability appraisal that I can see on the original outline permission. In terms of highways improvements, there are no off-site highways improvements, but there are proposals for pedestrian and cycle links kind of included in the approval that's already taken place. They wouldn't change as part of this.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Councillor Middleton and Councillor Woodliff. We're in the corner here, and I think that I have to second this motion, this proposal, on the basis that we don't want to go into litigation or anything like that at all. So I'm happy to do that, but I'm not happy about the fact that this building contractor has done what he's done to this planning application. But anyway, I'll second the motion. Thank you. With the clawback, yes.
Danny.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, it's obvious we can't do much about this application, which is something which is applied all around the country. The government are pushing for more houses to be built. The developers, they are business people, they want to make money and profit, so they're going to push whatever they can. That's one thing. I have been always advocating against development without any infrastructure to go with it, which is we don't have. I mean, our links on the transport, they're very poorly around Boston. People who will live there probably will take them time to go probably to Tesco, which is the nearest one. However, there is a few beacons of life coming through that place. There is a stadium, there is, Greg's, there is, Burger King, there is Costa, there is the Kaya car show. So there is things around that area, but it's not as complete as it should be. Affordable homes, yes, they are good to have, but sometimes people, when they buy their homes, to share that with you, my son bought a new house in the Quadrant, and then it was an affordable home next to him, and it was just loud music, car parts front of the house, and people sometimes you just feel like I'm buying a house and then I have somebody destroying the area because it's new. So as I said before, can we do anything? Probably not. So we just have to go against our will, and probably what we would like to see, and I think we just have to approve the application and go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Welbury.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out the arrogance of the developer in the fact that they're not even here today. They knew that this is what we'd have to come to. they didn't even defend their decision not to go through with the 106. And this is going to get more and more prevalent, I'm afraid. Makes you wonder 3 years ago whether they just said yes, 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 and all along knew that they weren't going to follow through. We see it time and time again. Surely we can make a stand of some description. Especially as you've said, it's related to the foundations. There must be some sort of land survey that's undertaken that we can see as a council to see probably some of the issues that are going to crop up further along the line. Thank you.
Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fully supporting what Councillor Welby has just said. I fully agree with Councillors Woodliff, Middleton, Pierpoint, but we can't do this. We just can't. I know I'm relatively new to the planning committee, but if you're saying that you don't want to do something, but you've got no choice, you have to. That shouldn't be how a planning committee is run. Councillor Welby hit the nail on the head when she said that she wonders if these people 3 years ago actually planned this right from moment one. If the ground isn't suitable, it's not suitable. It shouldn't have been passed in the first place. I find it very, very difficult to support this. And I'm aware that if we all voted against it, we may well get further problems. But I can't support this. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of points back, Councillor. And again, I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment of some of what you said. Just in regards to why this was granted previously, I think I would just point out that this was actually an allocated site. So the local plan itself identified this as principally a site that we as a council wanted to sort of see come forward to deliver housing. Now, I have to say, allocations do tend to, I've never worked in local plan policy, but from my understanding, it's more of a geographic assessment of a site rather than a physical constraint check of the site. So yes, there's a number of things you can sort of usually establish from a site. I mean, for example, it's not really a matter in this part of the world, but topography quite often is something that's visually obvious. That will be a constraint to the site come the actual development. A lot of things can be known and a lot of tests can be run, but actually for a lot of developments, there's a lot of unknowns until you actually do start to actually physically commence the works and get into the site, especially when you are talking about sort of subsurface matters to do with sort of foundations. It can be the same with sort of land contamination at times. So I do understand entirely what you're saying, Councillor. You know, and on a personal level, I do agree, but it is acknowledged sort of industry wide and through planning that there are quite often some unknowns that you do not simply know as or a developer does not know until they're actually physically undertaking the site. And like I say, an allocation that when we put forward is usually a geographic allocation rather than any sort of physical testing or things have been done. So that's why you had a site that kind of came forward originally, because as a council we wanted it, we proposed it. The reality of actual the sort of physical commencement, that's obviously how things have sort of moved on.
Maybe a commercial development on that site would have been better, and housing elsewhere.
Well, obviously, if you, I mean, whether we should have allocated this for housing or commercial is probably a little bit late in the day, given the local plan is some sort of 7-8 years old now. I mean, you wouldn't get any contributions if it was a commercial site. So the only contributions that you would have secured would have been through housing. Whether there is a need for a commercial development there, whether it's the right location. You've heard about highway networks. I don't know, but the reality is that that's not what it was allocated for. So that, unfortunately, that the decision made on that was probably about the similar time that you said you were sort of moving to the area when the local plan was first being drafted. Unfortunately, Council.
Right, thank you. Well, we've given this a really, really good airing, and although I don't personally agree with it either, but I understand that the way we have to vote on this because we really have no options. It's the old-fashioned saying of having the shotgun held to your head. But anyway, if we move to the vote, please, the recommendation to approve the conditions subject to the signing of a revised S106 agreement. Could we have a show of hands? Yes.
Can I just ask the planning officer, you mentioned that there's a shortfall of housing in Boston, and obviously that's part of the reasons why you feel that it's important that this goes forward. Could it be possible if you give us an up-to-date list of all the live planning applications there is in Boston and the surrounding areas, and how many houses are technically approved at planning stage after this meeting, obviously?
I mean, technically, I'll say yes. I'll probably have to refer to one of our planning support team who are very good at sort of pulling stats and figures off. I guess my question would just be sort of in regard to what it is you'd be seeking to achieve in that. I mean, we, as those rightfully said, we do a monitoring report every year. I think the next one is due at the end of March, which kind of goes through all the consents we've granted, all the number of homes, commercial properties, tourism, etc., etc. So that is an annual report that is published. If it's in relation to the sort of 5-year supply, then we do, our local plan team do run every year an updated report, which does take into account over the accounting period the number of proposals, the number of planning applications we have approved for housing, tots them all up, works the magic numbers and the calculations, which I don't confess to now understand, but the dark arts, it comes out with a 5-year housing land supply figure. The last time they did that was obviously back in, I think it was July, and we'd fallen just short of. We have approved a number of homes since. There's been a number of applications that this planning committee has approved over the summer months and the back end of this year, in addition to some delegated items. So there is a chance that next time the figures are calculated and run, we may have a 5-year supply. But I think if it was just a case of, if I might have a conversation with you outside of the meeting, if just in terms of what you specifically want, because I say that would probably be a little bit of work for somebody to do. So it's whether or not what you're after would be captured by the monitoring report / the next time the 5-year supply report is published.
Right, we move on then to agenda item 4. On page 45 of the agenda, and there's a periodic review of receipt of appeal decisions since the previous report dated October 2024, and to highlight any key decisions or themes arising. This is a report for noting only, and the Principal Planning Officer, Lewis Humphreys, will now present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just going to keep this fairly brief. This is a brief summary of all of the appeals that we've had since October 2024, when there was last an appeals update. We've had 10 planning appeals in that time. 8 of them were dismissed and 2 were allowed. There's a brief list of those and a summary of each of the decisions in the report. Members are interested. Just in terms of performance, appeals performance is something that we report to government. There is a 10% threshold where if we have 10% of appeals allowed against the total number of planning applications that are decided in any given in any given period, then that's the threshold for special measures. In this case, we haven't had any majors that have been allowed, so we're at 0% for that, and our figure for minors is at 0.44%. So the performance is really positive. I think it shows a good level of kind of officer and member decision making. We've not had any applications for costs allowed in that period either. And I think there's just a brief point that's worth drawing out in the way in which officers are considering policy 1 and 4 in kinds of kind of small housing sites in the countryside. There's a reasonably significant number within the last year of those appeals that cover that application, and they've all been the inspectors sided with officers and the council on those applications. Just briefly, there is at the end of that, there's reference to an ongoing appeal in there at White House Lane. That was an application that was before committee. The decision has been made, as you'll note in there, not to contest that appeal due to material changes in circumstances associated with the 5-year land supply. And that was agreed with the portfolio holder, chair, vice chair of committee, and the ward member that called the application in. And that's everything on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. As this is for noting only, the recommendation, our members agreed. Will we have a vote on that, please? All agreed? Thank you. And 3 was approved. Yeah. Right. Before we finish, I'd like to mention that today is Lewis's last planning committee meeting before he leaves the council and moves to pastures new. I'm sure that members will want to join me in thanking Lewis for his work and to wish him all the best in the future. I think, is it North Cape? Yeah, well, congratulations, and you'll be sadly missed, young man. Right, thank you then. That concludes the business of the committee for today. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 24th of February.